There is more to it, and I'll tell you. Many years ago, way over 20 years ago, I got a little bit into speed reading through a friend of mine who was taking some like very expensive classes. So he gave me a few pointers, and one of them that I'm never going to forget is singing a song as you are reading, right? Think of whatever song you know the lyrics by heart, have it play, start singing, put whatever text in front of you, and read it. And you'll be surprised. One would say, wow, I cannot do that. Yeah, we can. Because
With
the
lyrics or
brain,
no lyrics?
with lyrics, I'm telling you, you're going
Really?
to be singing, whatever the song is, you're going to be singing, and then put some text in front of you and read it. When you are done, shut everything down and then like write down, what do you remember from the text? You will remember a whole lot, because the brain, we don't have to like sub vocalize, we don't have to like read to ourselves, sing with our voices in our mind. As soon as we see it, the brain has already processed. So that to me was like, oh, and then I started making the connections, because like when I was practicing this, I could, for instance, have some sort of text on the side. I would be typing whatever I was seeing on the text while singing some other lyrics. And I was typing what I was seeing, but I was not necessarily processing everything. I'm seeing the words, I'm recognizing them, I'm typing them, but I'm not really thinking about them, right? So that's again
Wait. What?
yeah,
This is wild. Wait, so
it
you're
is.
saying that you can multitask? Because, and this might be a little controversial. Many women say that, oh no, they swear by it. In fact, I can multitask. My roommate, uh, my stepmom, many people. I remember I was at a Christmas dinner this year, and this was one of the topics around the table was, is it possible to multitask? And for years or my whole life I was like, no, it's not possible, you can only do one thing at a time. But here you're essentially saying that there's two different things at work. The song might actually be put into the you are not your thoughts kind of side of the brain, where the song goes over there and maybe quiets those thoughts so that your focused part, your deliberate part of your brain can focus on what you're reading, and kind of comprehend that. And so maybe like listening to the music, maybe it can actually quiet down the distractions in a way.
So yeah, I wouldn't push it as far as to say multitasking, because I also don't believe that we can multitask, right? There is a very short span of what you can do multitasking, right? So what I'm describing with, I'm singing some song like mindlessly, it's like effortlessly, I can sing a song along, a song that I've been listening my whole life. It's just part of me. I can do that while I'm seeing words materialize, right? And my brain can see that. That's why when we are driving and we're singing, in the car, when we see our exit, we don't have to see exit 135 or Houston. We don't have to say it. We see it, even though we are singing at the top of our lungs. We see it. It's just how it is. The whole multitasking, when we try it, yeah, we are doing multiple things at the same time, but it's like it's split attention, right? You give a little bit of attention to this, a little bit of attention to this, a little bit. And I know, like from playing guitar and singing. Oh, so you're playing guitar and you're singing. That's multitasking a little bit, because we do have to say, okay, when I'm in that G chord, that's where the chorus starts. When I'm switching over to this other chord, I should be saying this other part of the lyrics, right? So it's all stitched together. It's not that we are playing and singing as two separate things. We're splitting attention between the two. Does that make sense?
A little bit. What I'm confused about is, for example, piano, right? I think it's exactly the same thing that you're talking about, just manifesting with the other hand, essentially. But you play the left hand notes and then you play the right hand notes, and then your eyes are actually looking at two different bars where the instructions are coming from, and
Mm-hmm.
almost like the language or the thing, you're like the compiler or whatever, and this is like the code, and then so what
Uh-huh.
comes out is like a working piece of software. Just kind of a weird metaphor.
Uh-huh.
But what you're saying is that you're actually doing one thing and actually working both arms completely independently is actually the same thing. Like you're actually just
Oh, it's
doing one
one
thing.
thing. Yeah, you are doing one thing. You're playing the piano. To do that one thing, you have to use your left hand, your right hand, and your eyes, right, to see the notes that you're playing. Think of a drummer then. Is a drummer doing four things, like four tasks? No, a drummer is playing a song that within this bar is going to hit the kick drum, maybe open the hi-hats, maybe hit the snare here and a crash there, all happening kind of like at the same time, right? At least, I
So
mean,
then
yeah,
so what is the difference? What is the difference? Because some maybe some kid who doesn't know, they'll see some crazy musical situation and they'll say, "Oh, the band is playing," right? So it's like a one that there's one action taking place. From the uneducated on the situation, it just looks like one thing's happening. But to maybe somebody who has done it for 20 years and they have all this experience, they see the drummer and they know not only like the song that's playing, but they know how the drummer is kind of keeping everything on the tempo. And so the drummer not only is thinking about playing his song or his notes, but also kind of keeping everybody together. And then the guitarist is not only singing or playing guitar, but also singing. And so, like, where is the division between the perception of just one thing happening versus the actual reality of one man is playing a bunch? Because playing the drums is multiple things, is it not? Or is it just one thing? Where do we make that distinction, right? Like, because like it just seems very similar to being at work and let's say watching a YouTube video and programming at the same time, right? So if that was part of your job, somebody who doesn't understand might look at you and say, "Oh, he's working, right? I'm doing one thing." But in reality, obviously I'm not because oh, is it maybe that your mental focus is separated? And that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
wow.
because
So then
uh
yeah.
no, I was gonna say, think about it. Like, if I'm like maybe I just got a new CD. Yeah, I'm old fashioned. I like the physical CDs, right?
Okay.
Uh, right, and I'm listening to it and I'm excited about that. It's like I'm listening to the song and I'm listening to all the layers because being a musician, I just don't listen to music as a listener. I also listen to, like, from the musicianship's perspective, and from like writing lyrics myself, I tend to also pay attention to the lyrics. So at that point, if I put on that CD and I try to work at the same time, am I really working and listening to the CD? Am I doing the two activities? But yeah, they're happening at the same time, but it's like, well, no, I'm focusing on the work. Oh, I just heard a little bit of chorus here that's interesting. And then I'm back to work. The music continues playing. I'm, yeah, it's there, but am I really listening to it? Not until I say, okay, work, wait. Oh, that, and then back. So as far as I understand it, it's this split. We cannot do the two things 100% of the time. It's
Not yet
that's
at
what's
least.
not gonna happen. Yeah, that
Because the reason I think that the word yet is critical here is because you can't start out by playing like when you learn a piano song, you learn or come the way that I was learning is I wasn't taking a class, so I don't know how structured the teaching can get, but when I was kind of learning, I would do one hand first and I would play the one hand and then I'd come back and I'd play the other hand. And so in that sense, playing with two hands is multitasking because I can only focus on one hand at a time. And then as I built up this experience where, oh, the hands play together, now it's like the two tasks actually become one. And so do you think that there's kind of this sort of digestion period where multiple things become one? And so over time we're able to, where we couldn't multitask before, now we still technically can't because the task hasn't been split up. Now it's just been unified. So we can't ever multitask, but the things that we can focus on maybe expand in complexity.
I think what we're getting to is because it's very taxing on the mind when we're multitasking. That's why, like, yeah, like playing a guitar and singing is kind of multitasking because those are two distinct. things that we are doing at the same time, except that we are really stitching those two things together, right? You pay attention to this thing, more to like the playing than to the singing, and then vice versa, and eventually you just go with it, right? Like driving a car with a stick shift. On the beginning, you're just thinking clutch, where first gear, where second gear. Eventually, you put all of those together into the act of driving a car. You don't think I'm shifting gears, I'm accelerating, I'm braking. Like, no, you're driving.
Okay, so this is very interesting. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So essentially, and are you able to see this thing here?
It's coming
This
up. There we go. Mm-hmm.
this diagram. Okay, so this is very interesting because this is essentially what I think is happening is that so over on the right side, this is the brain before we learn to overly complicate something or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
when we first start to learn a skill, let's say we're learning guitar, right? So there's the singing and there's the strumming of the songs. So the reason that we can't do those maybe in the beginning is that whenever this certain neural pathway fires, for example, singing the song, it's not connected. It's not very strong. So whenever the thought in the metaphor comes up into the brain and then starts hitting brain cells, it kind of gets lost in a way. And so then as we practice, as we strengthen that skill, more neurons, more myelin come and surrounds those brain cells. So there's less kind of entropy there. And so the thought tends to stick to one certain area. And maybe this is how we get better at something. And so here over on the left side, we have maybe singing and top row of those nodes over on the left side, maybe here, this is singing, but then this is playing the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not until we start to practice those things together that it becomes more efficient from a brain thinking point of view to do them this is kind of the idea of stitching things together, right? Or like driving a manual car. Like driving a manual vehicle is extremely difficult in the beginning because you can't think about putting your blinker on or you can't think about shifting gears because you're so worried about the blinker and that right hand mirror, right? And so it's almost like you are multitasking by driving a standard transmission vehicle. But then as you kind of develop these skills, it actually just transitions into driving. You're not thinking about shifting gears or putting in the clutch or downshifting to go up a hill. It's just part of,
Yeah.
it's just drive. And it's something that's also interesting is it's even weird to say this out loud. It's so common, this idea of learning a skill, that it's like kind of a little bit interesting to talk about it. But to me, it is multitasking, I think. And it's just like the way that it's multitasking until your brain gets so good at the context switch that they're actually in the same area. It's like your brain almost remaps something from long-term storage to memory, to RAM. And
Yes.
so,
Well,
yeah,
the
what do you,
thought that comes to mind with like context switch. So as long as it's within the same context, is it multitasking? Or maybe those smaller tasks, if they all are grouped together within the same context, like we're playing the same song, right? That's one
Sure.
context,
Uh-huh.
right? It's like, think about it like when we are driving, why do people say don't, drive and text at the same time? Because that would be multitasking, and those are two different contexts. Talking is one thing, driving is another thing. You put the two together, you can split your attention because you're going to have to do a little bit of attention on the driving, a little bit of attention on the texting, but you cannot really do both, not safely, because those are different contexts.